Good day, everyone. Today, we begin our journey into business forecasting, a field that sits at the heart of decision-making in modern organizations. Forecasting is not just about predicting the future, it is about reducing uncertainty and enabling better decisions. Let me start with a powerful quote that dates back thousands of years. Tell us what the future holds, so we may know that you are gods. From ancient times to today's data-driven world, forecasting has always fascinated humanity. If you have seen the movie 300, Leonidas even climbed the steepest hills to meet the oracle and forecast the chances of winning in going to war with Persia. But today, instead of relying on oracles or superstition, we rely on data, models, and scientific reasoning. Part 1. History of forecasting. Forecasting has a surprisingly dramatic history. In ancient Babylon, people tried to predict the future by examining sheep livers. In Greece, they traveled to the oracle at Delphi, where predictions were made under trance-like states. Later, forecasting was even banned. In AD 357, Emperor Constantius II outlawed forecasters. In 1824, England, fortune-tellers were jailed as rogues and vagabonds. Why such extreme reactions? Because forecasting has power. Good forecasts can create competitive advantage, but bad forecasts can lead to disaster. Consider these famous examples. Let's talk about good forecast first that gives competitive advantage. A powerful real-life example of good forecasting is Amazon and its use of demand forecasting. Amazon uses advanced data and algorithms to predict what customers are likely to buy even before they place an order. In some cases, they position products in warehouses closer to customers ahead of time. This allows them to deliver items faster, often within one day or even the same day, while also reducing storage and shipping costs. Because of this ability to anticipate demand, Amazon has gained a massive competitive advantage and continues to dominate the e-commerce industry. As we can clearly see, Amazon does not simply wait for demand to happen, they predict it, and that is where their power comes from. Another strong example is Netflix, which uses forecasting to understand viewer behavior. Netflix collects and analyzes large amounts of data on what people watch, how long they watch, and what types of content they prefer. Based on this data, they are able to predict what shows will be successful. This is how they decided to produce the series House of Cards, which became a major success. By relying on forecasting instead of guesswork, Netflix has achieved massive subscriber growth and saved billions of dollars by investing only in content that is likely to succeed. In this case, Netflix is not guessing what people want. They are forecasting human behavior based on data. A third example is Zara, a company known for its fast fashion strategy. Zara constantly monitors customer preferences and fashion trends in real time. Instead of producing large quantities months in advance, they update their designs every 2 to 3 weeks based on what customers are currently buying. This allows them to stay aligned with trends and avoid overproducing items that may not sell. As a result, Zara has very little unsold inventory and remains highly responsive to market demand. Unlike traditional fashion companies, Zara does not simply follow trends. They predict and even shape them. What about poor forecasting? What does poor forecasting cost? Poor forecasting can lead to serious consequences and even business failure. A classic example is Blockbuster. Blockbuster failed to anticipate the shift from physical video rentals to digital streaming. Despite the growing popularity of Netflix, Blockbuster continued to focus on its traditional business model and ignored the changing market. As a result, the company filed for bankruptcy in 2010, and what was once a dominant industry player disappeared. This shows that they did not just miss the future, they failed to recognize it entirely. Another example is the global supply chain failures during the COVID-19 pandemic. Many companies were unprepared for the sudden surge in demand for essential goods, such as personal protective equipment, PPE, ventilators, and even basic household items like toilet paper. Because demand was not properly forecasted, Shortages occurred worldwide, leading to panic buying and significant economic losses. This situation clearly demonstrates that when forecasting fails, the consequences can affect not just individual companies, but entire systems and societies. Finally, Kodak provides a powerful lesson in failed forecasting. Interestingly, Kodak was the company that invented the digital camera. However, they failed to recognize how important digital photography would become and continued to focus on traditional film products. As digital technology advanced, Kodak was unable to adapt quickly enough and eventually filed for bankruptcy in 2012. In this case, Kodak was able to predict the technology itself, but failed to forecast its impact on the industry. These examples clearly show that forecasting is not just about numbers or predictions. It determines success or failure. A bad forecast does not only reduce profits, it can bring down entire industries. In simple terms, forecasting determines who leads and who disappears. Companies that forecast well, like Amazon and Netflix, are able to dominate the future, while those that fail, like Blockbuster and Kodak, become part of history. Part 2. Why forecasting matters. Forecasting is present in almost every decision that businesses make, whether they realize it or not. For example, a company like McDonald's needs to estimate how many customers will come in each day so it can prepare enough food. If they expect more customers on weekends, they cook more burgers and fries in advance. Similarly, a company like Tesla must decide whether to build a new factory. And that decision depends on forecasting future demand for electric cars. Even a small store must forecast how much inventory to stock. Too little leads to shortages, and too much leads to waste. All of these decisions rely on predicting what is likely to happen in the future rather than simply guessing. Forecasting supports decision-making at 3 important levels. The first is the short-term level, which focuses on daily operations. For example, a coffee shop must decide how many employees to schedule for tomorrow. If they expect more customers during the morning rush, they assign more staff to handle orders quickly. Grocery stores also use short-term forecasts to determine how much fresh produce to display each day so that food does not spoil. These decisions help businesses run smoothly and avoid problems such as long waiting times or wasted products. The second level is the medium term, which involves planning for the coming months. For example, a company like Walmart uses forecasts to decide how much inventory to order for the next season, especially during major events like Christmas or back-to-school periods. They also use forecasts to determine whether they need to hire more workers or adjust supply orders. These decisions are not immediate like daily operations, but they are still critical for maintaining efficiency and meeting expected demand. The third level is the long term, which involves major strategic decisions. For instance, companies like Amazon forecast long-term growth in online shopping before deciding to build new warehouses or expand into new markets. Airlines forecast future travel demand before purchasing new aircraft, which can cost billions of dollars. These decisions require careful forecasting because they involve long-term investments and significant financial risk. Without forecasting, organizations are essentially operating blindly. Imagine a restaurant that does not estimate how many customers will come. It may run out of food or prepare too much and waste money. Similarly, a company that builds a factory without forecasting demand may end up with unused capacity and heavy losses. In simple terms, forecasting gives businesses direction and allows them to make smart, informed decisions instead of relying on guesswork. Part 3. What makes something forecastable? Not everything can be forecast accurately. There are 4 key conditions. 1. Understanding. Do we understand what drives the system? A good real-life example is electricity demand in a city. Power companies can forecast how much electricity people will use tomorrow because they understand what drives it. They know that when the weather is hot, people use more air conditioning. When it is cold, they use heaters. They also know that demand is higher in the evening when people are home. Because the causes are clear and well understood, forecasting becomes more accurate. Now compare this to predicting stock market prices. even experts do not fully understand all the factors affecting the market: politics, investor emotions, global events, and unexpected news. Because we do not fully understand what drives it, forecasts become unreliable. 2. Data. Do we have enough historical data? A simple example is supermarket sales. Stores like Walmart have years of data showing how many products are sold every day, every week, and every season. They know that sales increase during holidays like Christmas or Thanksgiving. Because they have a lot of past data, they can predict future demand quite accurately and stock the right amount of goods. On the other hand, imagine launching a brand new product like a new type of gadget that has never existed before. There is no past data to rely on. Because there is no historical record, forecasting demand becomes much harder and less accurate. 3. Stability. Is the future similar to the past? A good example of stability is school enrollment. A university like University of California can predict how many students will enroll next year because patterns usually change slowly. The number of applicants may grow gradually, but it does not suddenly double or drop overnight. Because the future behaves similarly to the past, forecasts are reliable. Now compare this to the travel industry during COVID-19. Airlines had years of stable data showing consistent passenger growth. But when the pandemic hit, travel suddenly stopped. The past was no longer a good guide to the future. Because the environment changed drastically, forecasts failed. 4. Independence. Do forecasts influence outcomes? A clear example is weather forecasting. When meteorologists predict rain, that forecast does not actually cause the rain to happen. Whether they predict it or not, the weather will behave the same way. Because the forecast does not influence the outcome, it is easier to make accurate predictions. Now compare this to stock prices or cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. If many people forecast that Bitcoin's price will go up, investors may rush to buy it. This increases demand and actually pushes the price up. In this case, the forecast changes the outcome. Because of this feedback effect, forecasting becomes much more difficult and unpredictable. Key lesson: a good forecaster must know when forecasting is possible and when it is not. Forecasting works best when we understand the system, have enough data, the world is stable, and our predictions don't change the outcome. The moment one of these breaks, forecasting becomes much harder. Part 4. Forecasting versus goals versus planning. This is one of the most misunderstood concepts in business. Let's clearly distinguish forecasting, what is likely to happen; goals, what you want to happen; planning, what actions you take to achieve goals. The problem? Many organizations set goals, but ignore forecasts and fail to create realistic plans. This leads to unrealistic expectations and poor decisions. A strong organization aligns forecast, goal, plan. One simple way to understand this is through a small coffee shop. The owner looks at past sales and notices that on a typical Saturday, around 200 customers come in. Based on that pattern, the owner expects about the same number next Saturday. This expectation is forecasting. It is based on what is likely to happen using past data and experience. Now, the owner decides, I want to earn $5,000 this Saturday. This is a goal. It is not based on what will probably happen, but on what the owner wants to happen. Goals are important because they give direction, but they can sometimes be unrealistic if they are not connected to the forecast. Next comes planning. The owner needs to figure out what actions to take to reach that goal. Should they hire more staff, buy more supplies, offer discounts or promotions to attract more customers? Planning is about making decisions and taking steps to try to turn the goal into reality. The problem in many real-life situations is that businesses set goals without checking their forecasts and without creating proper plans. For example, if only 200 customers are expected, but the owner wants very high sales without doing anything differently, the goal will likely not be achieved. This leads to frustration, wasted resources, and poor decisions. A strong and successful business connects all three. It starts with a realistic forecast, sets a goal that makes sense based on that forecast, and then creates a clear plan to bridge the gap between what is likely to happen and what they want to happen. Part 5. Types of forecasting methods. There are two main approaches. 1. Qualitative, judgmental methods used when no historical data exists, new products or markets. A simple way to understand qualitative, judgmental forecasting is to think about situations where there is no past data to rely on. For example, imagine a company planning to launch a completely new product, like a brand new type of wearable gadget that has never existed before. Since the product is new, there are no previous sales records, no trends, and no historical patterns to analyze. Because of this, the company cannot use numbers or statistics to predict demand. Instead, the company relies on people's knowledge and experience. They might ask experts in technology, marketing, and consumer behavior what they think will happen. These experts give their opinions based on what they know about similar products, current trends, and customer preferences. This process is called qualitative forecasting because it is based on judgment rather than data. One structured way to do this is the Delphi method, where a group of experts are asked to give their predictions anonymously. Their answers are collected, summarized, and shared with the group, and then they are asked again. This process continues until the group reaches a general agreement. The idea is that combining multiple expert opinions leads to a more reliable forecast. In simple terms, qualitative forecasting is used when there are no numbers to guide you, so you rely on informed human judgment to estimate what might happen. Important to remember, these are structured approaches, not random guesses. 2. Quantitative methods used when historical data exists. Patterns are expected to continue. Two key types of data: time series data, over time; cross-sectional data, single point. Quantitative forecasting methods are used when there is historical data available and when we believe that the patterns we saw in the past will continue into the future. In simple terms, this approach uses numbers and data to make predictions. For example, if a business has recorded its sales every day for the past 5 years, it can analyze that data to predict future sales. The idea is that patterns, such as trends or seasonal increases, will likely repeat. There are two main types of data used in quantitative forecasting. The first is time series data, which is data collected over time. This is the most common type used in forecasting. For example, a company might look at monthly sales, daily stock prices, or hourly electricity demand. By observing how these values change over time, businesses can identify patterns such as growth trends or seasonal peaks. For instance, a retail store may notice that sales always increase during December, so it can forecast higher demand during the holiday season. The second type is cross-sectional data, which is data collected at a single point in time. Instead of looking at changes over time, it compares different groups at the same moment. For example, a company might compare sales across different branches in 1 month to understand which locations perform better. While this type of data is useful for analysis, it is less commonly used alone for forecasting future trends. In everyday life, quantitative forecasting is used in many familiar situations. Businesses track sales to decide how much inventory to order. Financial markets analyze past stock prices to estimate future movements. Weather agencies use historical rainfall and temperature data to predict future weather conditions. Power companies study past electricity usage to forecast demand. In all these cases, the key idea is the same: use past data to predict what is likely to happen next. Part 6. Types of forecasting models. There are 3 major model types. 1. Time series. Models use past data only, identify trends and seasonality. A time series model uses only past data of the same thing you are trying to predict. For example, if a store looks at its sales last year and uses that to predict sales next year, it is using a time series model. It focuses on patterns like trends and seasonal changes, such as higher sales during holidays. It does not consider outside factors. It only looks at what happened before. 2. Explanatory models use external variables. An explanatory model uses external factors to explain and predict what will happen. For example, electricity demand is not just based on past usage, it is strongly affected by temperature. When the weather is hot, people use more air conditioning, so demand increases. In this case, temperature helps explain and predict electricity usage. This model answers the question, why is this happening? 3. Mixed dynamic models. This is a combination of both models. A mixed or dynamic model combines both approaches. It uses past data and also includes external factors. For example, to predict electricity demand more accurately, a company might look at past demand, current temperature, and even the time of day. This gives a more complete picture because it considers both historical patterns and real-world influences. In simple terms, it is the most powerful approach because it uses everything available to make a better prediction. To conclude, time series looks at the past, explanatory looks at the causes, and mixed models use both to get the best prediction. Part 7. The 5 steps in forecasting. A proper forecasting process involves: Step 1. Problem definition. What exactly are we forecasting? Problem definition is identifying what you want to forecast. Example, the restaurant must decide, are we forecasting daily customers, total weekly sales, or just weekend demand? If this step is unclear, everything that follows will be wrong. That is why this is often the hardest and most important step, identifying what you want to forecast. The restaurant must decide, are we forecasting daily customers, total weekly sales, or just weekend demand? If this step is unclear, everything that follows will be wrong. That is why this is often the hardest and most important step. Step 2. Gathering information data, plus expert knowledge. At this stage, the restaurant collects past data, such as how many customers came in each day over the past months. At the same time, they may ask staff or managers for insights, such as whether there are upcoming events, holidays, or promotions. This combines both data and real-world experience. Step 3. Exploratory analysis. Look for trends, seasonality, outliers. This is the stage where the restaurant studies the data to look for patterns. They may notice that weekends are always busier than weekdays, that sales increase during holidays, or that there were unusual days when sales suddenly dropped or spiked. These patterns, trends, seasonality, and outliers help them understand how the business behaves. Step 4. Model selection. Choose appropriate method. Model selection is where they decide how to make the forecast. For example, they might use a simple method like averaging past sales, or a more advanced method that accounts for trends and busy seasons. The choice depends on how complex the situation is and how much data is available. Okay. Step 5. Evaluation. Check accuracy and improve. After making the forecast, the restaurant compares it with what actually happened. If they predicted 200 customers but only 150 came, they need to understand why and improve their method. This step ensures that forecasting gets better over time. The key insight is that many people rush into calculations and models, but the most difficult and important part is clearly defining the problem at the beginning. If you forecast the wrong thing, even the best model will give the wrong answer. Part 8. Forecasting as probability. Forecasting is not about certainty, it is about probability. The future is treated as a random variable. Instead of one value, we estimate a range. Point forecast, expected value, prediction interval, range of possible outcomes. Forecasting is not about being perfectly right. It is about understanding uncertainty. A simple real-life example is predicting how many customers will visit a restaurant tomorrow. The owner cannot say with 100% certainty that exactly 200 customers will come. Instead, the owner estimates based on past data and patterns. This estimate is called the point forecast, which is the most likely or expected value. However, in reality, the number of customers could be a little lower or higher. Maybe only 180 customers come, or maybe 220. That is why forecasting also uses a range of possible values called a prediction interval. For example, the owner might say, there is an 80% chance that the number of customers will be between 180 and 220. This is the 80% prediction interval, a range where the outcome is likely to fall. If the owner wants to be more cautious, they might use a 95% interval, which is wider, such as 150 to 250 customers, because it accounts for more uncertainty. This idea shows that the future is treated like something uncertain or random. We cannot know it exactly, but we can estimate the range where it is likely to fall. The most important principle is that the further into the future we try to predict, the less certain we become. Forecasting tomorrow's customers is easier and more accurate than forecasting next year's customers because many unexpected changes can happen over time. In simple terms, forecasting is not about guessing one exact number. It is about understanding what is most likely to happen and how much uncertainty surrounds that prediction. Conclusion. Let me leave you with the key takeaways. Forecasting is both ancient and modern. It is essential for business success. Not everything is forecastable. Good forecasts rely on data, understanding appropriate models. Forecasting is about managing uncertainty, not eliminating it. And most importantly, a good forecast captures real patterns, not random noise. For your class first week activity, you are asked to apply the concepts of business forecasting to a real-life situation in your own home. Think of a simple and practical example where you can make a prediction, such as estimating your weekly expenses, the number of hours you study, the amount of food your household consumes, or your electricity usage. Begin by clearly explaining what you are forecasting and provide a specific estimate or expected value. Then, give a realistic range of possible outcomes to reflect uncertainty. After that, explain how you arrived at your forecast by describing any past experiences, patterns, or observations you used. You should also identify possible factors that could make your forecast inaccurate, such as unexpected events or changes in behavior. In addition, reflect briefly on whether your forecasting task was easy or difficult and explain why. You should also identify which of the 4 forecasting conditions, understanding data, stability, or independence, best applies to your example. Once you have completed your response, post your answer on the LMS discussion board. After posting, you are required to engage with your classmates by responding to at least one of their posts. In your reply, comment on whether their forecast seems realistic, suggest one way they could improve their forecast, and mention one factor they may have overlooked. All initial posts and responses must be submitted on the LMS discussion board no later than Saturday, April 18th, 2026, before 5 p.m. PST. See you next week.